and really just to get your perspective on what your experience has been like, and also get some discussion going on, what we could do in the future, what we could do a bit better. The first one is, how did you get involved in the world of football in the very beginning? And just because you're sitting next to me, perhaps I can start with you. How did you get involved?
Well, through my daughters, actually. So, yeah, both of them play footy. And my eldest, who's now 19, started playing when she was about 14. And, she really had never taken any interest before and whatnot, just went down with a friend and... so just started out getting involved on match day and that way. And then when my younger daughter joined a couple of years, I think it was the next year, took the team manager role and started out that way and just got to understand that sort of what happens on, match day and around the club and things like that. But just through the kids and just really enjoyed it. I've always been a footy tragic, so it's nice to have them interested in footy. They don't like to watch it, but they love to play. So really good.
I think that's a really important thing with getting women involved in football is having those people around about you that you can ask, but who're also there to encourage you and help you.
Is that sometimes, women bring a different perspective and they talk to the kids differently. I think some kids need a different sort of voice. And a lot of the girls don't have that base level understanding of the game that some of the boys do. But even some of the boys coming in playing, the younger ones, they don't have that base level, but sometimes the coaches who are really experienced sort of forget that and talk a bit above the kids. So, one thing I'm really mindful of is really explaining what does it mean in practice, when you say, even things people yell out at the football, it doesn't make any sense to a lot of the kids.
This idea of a different voice, or the female voice being a different voice, is really important. Not just with the kids who are playing, but also at the administrative level as well.
Obviously, things change over time as you get a rollover of, your executive committee and even your general committee. And as you said, the different perspectives and the different backgrounds people come from, obviously, it is going to change. I think with the introduction of girls footy, it has changed thinking a lot. It's made us think more logistically in some respects. I mean, you're looking at, your change rooms and how that works. If you've got boys and girls teams playing at the same time, you're looking at inclusiveness. So maybe how we ran the club when we were just a boys' club, how we include the girls, how we make them feel safe and secure, how they treat each other. Those sorts of things have changed. So I don't know whether it's administrative per se, or whether it's just more the way that we're thinking generally about clubs, how they're run, those sorts of things. I think has really changed, and the girls' footy's had a lot to do with that, I think.
Well, somebody who said that, the church no longer has that traditional place as the centre of the community, but often the football club can have that place as being somewhere where people come together and also look for support. So I think that's impacted the administration of clubs quite a bit. You have to, in some good ways, but also it's a pretty arduous task for clubs to do. So I think that's why, as a board, we've said we need to somehow find a way to relieve that burden and maybe come up with some framework that all the clubs can use, because it's a lot to deal with, especially when it's not, when you're the president of a club and you're like, I don't have a background in, social welfare and stuff. So not sure what we're meant to be doing and where do you draw that line? Child safety had a big impact on that. It was like, hang on, how much responsibility do we actually have?
So it's definitely a change for the better.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's a much broader understanding of welfare issues and well-being, physical well-being, but also mental well-being that we didn't really have before.
And COVID's exacerbated or sped some of those discussions up, hasn't it? Because it really has had an impact. And I think, the acceptance around children that are obviously from different ethnic backgrounds and children that have got, just sort of discovering their sexuality, and there's some, a lot of big conversations and support that clubs can provide, but needing to have those, I guess, experts, and it's something that we're obviously looking at as a league as well, making sure that we've got the right advice coming in as to how to manage it. But I think, to go back to your question, Ishbel, I think in the 3 years that I've been involved, I probably haven't seen a metamorphic change in administration, but it's sort of, to me, it feels like it's a simmer. And it is something that's really ready to sort of take to the next level in terms of females and women being accepted into administrative roles, but I kind of don't feel it's changed significantly. Somewhat that's been impacted by COVID, of course, and we haven't gotten all the games and the clubs haven't been able to be the place that they wanted to be, during those 2 years. But I sort of feel like it hasn't been a leaps and bouncing, but I feel I can't sort of articulate that with facts, but I just sort of feel like it's sort of on the verge of something pretty special. So I think, and I guess it's one of the reasons I'm involved, is to show that you can be and you can make a contribution, and maybe it's just in one part of the business of football. So you don't have to be everyone or everything to everyone. So I think some of the barriers are, that visibility of people already in those roles, and we were talking a little bit about Nicole Livingston before, and just seeing someone like her with her background, having been a sort of, I suppose, professional swimmer, and I just think she's such an amazing spokeswoman for women in administration. So I just think there's more access perhaps to people like that, to be able to see and hear their story and sort of say, I can do that. But I think people like us equally can make that sort of contribution. It doesn't have to be somebody that's in a senior role, in a senior paid role in AFL. But I think, that access to people, and I guess that's why this is a really good conversation to have, because we can provide that access more deeply to people.
Yeah, I think it's also about creating an environment where, women feel comfortable and supported. I think that's often evident if you look at the clubs that have had female presidents. They are, it is that they have already set up that environment which is probably a bit more supportive and a bit more forward thinking, and I think that it's about how do you get women involved in those clubs that maybe have a more conservative attitude and haven't made that leap. And that is part of this discussion, is that we said if you can show females being involved in footy, whether it's playing, whether it's coaching, whether it's administration, and talking about how that makes them feel, I think it's really, that's an important, like Ishbel mentioned well-being, and I was like, that feeling of, I did it because I liked the people, I thought it was a lovely club, and I liked that feeling, and I liked how I felt, helping out and being involved with our kids and the other kids, and you form relationships with all of those kids, I've seen them, our son's still playing, and you get this sort of, you're proud of them, and you have this lovely, you feel connected to them, which is really important. And with females playing footy, I can remember our daughter saying, it made her feel good and strong, and I think it's a really positive thing the way girls feel when they play footy, and I don't think they necessarily get that from other sports. So I think having those types of discussions and saying, you don't have to be an expert football player or an expert on football to become involved, because I think that women sometimes, we don't necessarily go, I can do that. Like men will go, oh, do you want to coach? Sure, I can do that. They don't think, oh, am I good enough? I don't know, I don't know if I'm good. I don't know if I'm good enough to coach them. I'm not sure about it and stuff. I think we tend to hold back a little bit, and so I think providing that environment. I've talked about saying, there needs to be, maybe coaching courses for women that only have women in them, and perhaps maybe run by women, so that it's again about safe environments and what you're saying about giving people the confidence to have a go, and explaining the language to them and stuff. Because you said, Ishbel, when you went to the coaching course, you were just at sea. I can remember talking to you, and you said it's like they were talking a foreign language, Whereas if you were in an environment that was all, women at your level, you might feel differently.
Certainly what I say, at the club to people who are thinking about volunteering, I say, you tell me how much time you've got, even if it's half an hour a week, and I'll find you a job. There is something that can suit every, if you never ever come to the club, I can still find you a job. You know what I mean? There are that many things to do behind the scenes that can be done, at home, at night, whenever. Or it might be that you want to come down and you want to spend an hour or two at the club every weekend or during the week at training or whatever. You know, there is a role for everyone. And I think you're right, it's just opening that door, and perhaps, you know, there are some things we can do. There is a lot of support material, but it's probably just that overwhelming feeling that some people have that, it's a lot to take on. But I think the thing we forget is, you know, women might not be expert in football, but they're pretty good on kids. They know kids pretty well. So, you know, and, you know, if anyone's been involved in coaching those really young kids, it's like herding cats. Like, it's not really that much. You don't need to be a super skilled footballer to run those sessions. You just need to be really good at keeping kids engaged. And, you know, who's better at that than, you know, the mums?
I'm hoping that my son might look at that and say, well, you know, maybe I could do some coaching when I'm a couple of years, once I'm eligible, I can do the umpire, and how can I give back? So sort of providing that example of, you know, if we all pitch in and help, we can really make this community amazing.
And also, I think teaching them that things don't just happen. Like you know, there is a certain sense of entitlement, you know, a little bit for young people generally. And so, you know, because the kids used to say to me, well, why are you volunteering? Like, why do you have to do it? And I said, well, somebody has to do it. So I'm going to do it. But there's also a whole lot of other people doing it, and your coaches and everybody. So it's about showing them that you do have a broader responsibility to the community. And it also feels really good. You know, like that's a bonus of it, that when you do that, then and you learn stuff. You know, you learn new skills, and you meet new people, and you make really interesting connections and stuff.
I think the message that I'm getting here is to encourage other women to get involved in administration of football. Is don't feel that you can't do it just because you haven't done it before, because it doesn't matter what you do in life, and you're going to learn somewhere. And it's really to say that, you know, that there is a community that's here that values volunteers and that are there to support you. And that even though, as you said, Suki, you might not know anything about football when you start, but by the time you finish, you know, you're going to be an expert. The participation of women in the administration of clubs. I would say my view is that women have always been involved in the administration of clubs. It's just that the women haven't necessarily been as visible. So, you know, I think we've got 32 clubs now, female club presidents. So if you look at that, you say, well, maybe only 10% of our presidents are women. I would say, well, okay, that's right, but it's not only 10% of our volunteers that are women. So just interested in your take on that. I would say that women have been involved for a long time. But what would you say to women who are maybe involved in half an hour a week or an hour a week doing a little bit here and there? What would you say to them to encourage them to maybe set their sights at becoming a club president or getting involved in a more visible way in the clubs?
Yes, I'd say it's actually not as scary as you think it's going to be. There is a lot of support, as we've already talked about today, particularly not just from within the club, but other clubs, other presidents, up the league. You know, there's a whole stack of resources out there these days that you can access. We've got the volunteer support officer, Jacinta, who's fantastic, who's another layer of support. It's just having a go. I think it really is just having a go and asking for help when you need it. That's the big thing. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to be the expert and the one that, you know, as soon as someone comes to you, you have to know the answer. You know, you can say, actually, I don't know, or I'm not sure, I'll get back to you, or whatever it is. You can involve other people, and it's really, really rewarding. You know, it's amazing. I mean, I've always felt that our club's been very supportive and very inclusive. But coming into executive and into president role, you just get to know people so much better, and the kids particularly. So I've developed quite a great relationship with some of our female, not having girls myself, some of our female players, which has been really fantastic, and getting to know them, seeing their perspectives, going and watching them, supporting them when they've done their YJFL rep team stuff, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot to gain from it, and personally too, I've learnt skills that I wouldn't have learnt before. So you were saying, Suki, before that, you know, you wouldn't have the confidence to talk to people. this is not something I would have done a few years ago, talking on camera. I don't do interviews. I'm not a public speaker. You know, it's not something I've ever been good at. And it's still not something I'm really comfortable with, but it's something that I feel more comfortable with because you are kind of, you do that more and you're almost more forced into some of those things. So facing some of your fears, personal growth, those sorts of things. So it's not just what you're doing for the club and you know, the wider football community. It's what you're doing for yourself.
Definitely. Well, as you know, I was nervous about even doing this session today. Closing remarks and anything else you would say, Suki, to prospective women who want to get involved in administration?
Yeah, I think it really is, you know, just have a go. Like you know, you really, you know, the club can't run without volunteers. Clubs can't run without volunteers. League can't run without volunteers. And I used to laugh a little bit because people would say, I just want to watch my child play football. And I was like, well, we all want to do that, you know. And so if everybody wants to do that, and the more volunteers that you have, you know, as you said, Marisa, you know, that the load is spread, you know, and stuff. And so, if everybody gets involved, then, you know, you can watch at least half of the game or something like that, you know, and everything.
I think probably the most important thing is to remember that the problems that you're solving, like I just consider myself a problem solver when I'm in my role, and they're not necessarily, you know, I would say maybe 5% of the problems I solve are football centric. Like everything else, they're human problems. They're people coming to you saying, look, you know, I want my kid to play, but I can't afford it, or there's issues that's going on, you know, off the field or whatever it is. But most of the stuff I'm dealing with, or the things I'm trying to solve, you know, just human, you know, natural problems that we come up against every day. So there's nothing, you don't need specialist knowledge for that. You just need to listen, you know. And I think if you have a football problem, you've got plenty of people around who can give you that football knowledge, you know, like there's people at the club, at every club, who live and breathe it and who will tell you in a heartbeat what they think about, you know, what the consequences of this decision will be, you know. So you don't have to really worry about that. It's about, you know, but I think the thing you bring is just bringing your experience and your knowledge and setting that example for your kids and you know, showing them that in those sort of roles, you know, as women you can be a leader, you know. And I think that's really critical. And the girls who I, you know, coach, who are, you know, they're going through, you know, tough times in society, and football is a way to give them just confidence that they can't get in other ways, in their bodies, in what they can achieve. And you know, that's what I love watching.